Home is the one place where we should feel the safest in our lives. It is our sanctuary from all the troubles of life, where we can retire from a long day and rest. What happens, though, when home is not the haven we want it to be, and is also the home to things not of this world? Hawaii is known for its sunny beaches and beautiful tropical climate. Like any state in the US, or anywhere people live, there is always a darkness there underneath it all, where spirits tend to cross paths with the living. Located in the Kamuki neighborhood, on the corner of 8th and Hauntings sits a small home on 2 beds of lava rock. This house is believed to be inhabited by an ancient Japanese yokai called Akasha. How a Japanese yokai managed to end up haunting a home in Hawaii is unknown. The yokai tends to live among humans under the guise of a common house cat. These yokai never show their true form unless it is at funerals. They are also known to steal corpses and either animate them or eat them. It would seem this yokai is more into being a nuisance to people than anything. The house went through multiple homeowners. In 1942, police were called out to the residence. When they arrived, they were greeted with the sight of a boy and his siblings on the living room sofa. While the mother was there screaming and waving tie leaves and sprinkling salt around to ward off evil spirits. When questioned, the woman had explained that her son had detected a strange odor, and the spirit was angered by being found out and attacked the family by attempting to strangle them several times. The police witnessing this all for themselves as well, eventually yielding after things went on for an hour and a half, and took the family to their relatives to stay for the rest of the night. Though this is all that was known of this incident, there are more incidents. 30 years later, 3 women were renting the home, and they became assaulted by an invisible force as well. They as well called the police to intervene and help. The women had requested the police to follow them to their friends' homes to get away from the place, and they reported that the women were still being attacked by this invisible force in the car as they were getting ready to leave. The officers reported that one of the women was being strangled and their arms being twisted in different ways. Even at one point, as they were starting to drive away, the car door opened on its own and one of the women was thrown from the vehicle. Bear in mind, the last incident was from a report in the newspaper posted around Halloween time, and may not be entirely true. It is interesting, though, that both incidents involved the same invisible force that attacked the residents. It is unknown which house was the one haunted in the neighborhood, and today the homes where the house supposedly sat are replaced with larger duplexes now. The haunting here may have been a case of fiction, but like all these stories, it is always possible to have been true. After all, every story comes from some kernel of truth to it. One thing is for certain, if you find yourself living in the location where this house sat, be wary of seeing common stray cats stalking close by. They may be a devious yokai in disguise. It is said in Japan, in the outskirts of Tokyo sits a home with a dark and grisly past that is still home to those that had departed their corporeal bodies in this world. An old traditional Japanese home once owned by the Himuro family was the site of many gruesome deaths. These were caused by the Himuro family themselves, as they would practice very ancient Shinto rituals that are outlawed now in Japan. One of these rituals was called the Strangling Ritual, which involved the sacrificial murder of a young girl, and was practiced every 50 years to ward off bad karma from befalling the family. It is believed that this karma would emerge from a portal that resided in the mansion's courtyard. To prepare the ritual, the family would select a baby girl from within the family and raise her secretly. This girl was referred to as the Rope Shrine Maiden. The girl would be isolated from the world her entire life until it was time to perform the ritual. If not then, it would fail, and the bad karma would be allowed to flow freely and destroy the family. When it came time to perform the ritual, the woman would be dragged into the courtyard with ropes tied around her neck, arms, and legs. Then oxen would be brought in to perform a quartering of the woman, a method of execution that results in the woman being torn apart. Then the ropes, freshly stained with the woman's blood, were set across the portal to seal it shut for another half a century until it was time to sacrifice another. This ritual would be practiced for multiple generations of the family, until one girl that was chosen had fallen in love with a boy she managed to see through a window in the mansion. This marked that the girl was no longer pure, and her sacrifice would be seen as a failure by the head of the family. The family began to fear the worst, and out of this fear, went insane and murdered the whole family with their katana, hacking them to pieces. He believed that by committing these acts of murder, he was sparing them a life of damnation. In the end, he turned the blade upon himself. Locals in the neighboring village tried to keep the story quiet for decades, but as all horrendous incidents, the story begins to spread and be heard by others. It has been said that people witness strange things happening on the property. Things like bloody handprints and large red stains being spotted blotting on the walls of the inside of the house. Apparitions being seen wandering the home at night and even during the day. It is believed these are the spirits of the family still inhabiting the home, and they say they will even attempt to perform the bloody rituals on those that enter the property. Some say that there have been people entering the home and being found dead with rope marks on their bodies, and sometimes even pulled to pieces within the series of underground tunnels in the home. Perhaps the most infamous is the story of a particular window of the house. If you take a picture of the window, a girl in a kimono will appear in the image. It is believed that this place is cursed and should be avoided at all costs. The deaths of those on the property still have yet to be explained to this day. If one has ever had the chance to play an old game called Fatal Frame on the original PlayStation, you may find this story familiar, as it was the legend the game drew its story from. It is unknown if this house truly exists, or was just another tale of fiction. If you are ever in Tokyo, perhaps try to see if you can find the Himuro Mansion. Just know, you have been warned. When buying a home, you are not just buying the home, you are buying its past. And that past may not always be the happiest one, and may still have echoes of darkness within it. In Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, sits an old wooden house with 4 bedrooms and 2 baths and a small front yard. It has been home to plenty of strange and unexplainable paranormal occurrences, with a dark past. In 1864, Augustus C. Laning inherited the land the house sits on now, and the land was not only a place where Laning's own nephew died in a fire caused by a lightning strike, but is said to be a very blood-soaked land due to being the site of multiple bloody conflicts between European settlers and native tribes who once occupied the land. Throughout the decades of the late 19th century and early 20th century, the house would be publicly auctioned 3 times and was eventually purchased in 1939. Following that year within the decade, there would be at least 5 deaths in the home, including one caused by their own free will. And an even stranger incident, a 54-year-old priest would just suddenly suffer a heart attack, taking his life as he was walking by the home. In 1975, radio DJ Walter Bennett and his wife Mary Ann would soon own the house, and while living there, they would come to be exposed to some of the most terrifying activity. The Bennetts would hear strange noises in the house that all seemed to center around the bedroom wall. When they investigated and pulled down the wall, they would discover a hidden box containing a red ribbon, a human molar, and chicken bones tied together in the shape of a cross. The couple would start having phantom knocks and scratches at the front door, only to open and find no one there. Or sometimes they would find a strange translucent figure there with a crooked smile. And they would see a ghostly little girl in a nightdress traveling through the walls, and often find spots of blood on the walls and pools of it on the living room floor. Then there was an odd stink of decay emanating from the kitchen that would just occur. The family would often hear shrieks and moaning throughout the home, or it would be crying and different voices coming from the walls or the attic. At times, they would hear heavy footsteps walking across the wooden floors. Perhaps the strangest of things the family witnessed was their daughter tripping on the stairs and slowly float down to the bottom, allowing the daughter to land on her feet. An occurrence that would happen more than once. The family would have priests come to bless the place in hopes of shooing away the ghostly inhabitants, but it would seem fruitless as the activity would continue. This would all come to a final crescendo for the Bennetts one night, when they were awoken to the sound of thunder on a clear day, followed by footsteps in the attic. The front door rattling uncontrollably, dishes crashing in the kitchen, hearing the sound of a child crying within the walls. The Bennetts would vacate the house after only 3 years of living in it. They left behind many of their belongings in a desperate attempt to leave. The house would end up putting Bennett $40,000 in debt, and he would have trouble selling the home. After going public with their story, the Warrens would even drop by at once to visit, and according to Lorraine Warren, she claimed to sense a great despair emanating from the home, though they were only able to sit outside the home as it was locked up. Eventually, the bank would repossess the home from the Bennetts, and then it would be sold to Catherine Watkins and her 2 children. She knew the history of the home, but doubted the stories. Catherine would live within the home for 30 years until her death. She managed to live with all the activity, which she claims was things like the bed shaking, objects being moved on their own, the lights in the TV turning themselves off and on. When Catherine's daughter inherited the home, she put it up for sale, and it was then purchased by Tim Woods, a paranormal researcher. Seeking to investigate and find proof of the supernatural, Woods would go on document that his crew would suffer scratches, hear noises, have their clothes tugged on by unseen forces, and many other eerie happenings. Much of this is on his YouTube channel. Today, the home is now owned by someone else, and there has been no news of anything else happening there. Perhaps the nightmares ended for the home. Perhaps it was all just fiction. Or perhaps the new owners have simply learned to live with their restless roommates, and the nightmare continues. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Perhaps click the bell for notifications, and remember, hell is empty, and the devils are here.